All right, we're live. This is really exciting because in the past I've done a Zoom Parsha shear, and starting now, I am very much hoping to have this be the beginning of a Yontif, holiday time of year shear. So beginning with Elul, then we're gonna go to Rosh Hashanah, perhaps a Yom Kippur and Sukkot if I could squeeze it in the Tishrei, busy Tishrei season. And we're gonna have Hanukkah, we're gonna have Purim, God willing, Pesach, Shavuos. I'm really excited. Um, and thank you for all of you who are joining me live tonight, but this is gonna go up on YouTube, so anybody can enjoy it anytime. So this is Elle. I think it really is one of my absolutely favorite classes to teach. Um, and you may have heard of the term "the king is in the field," and it's been thrown around a lot, and now it's in Jewish music, and a lot of people seem to know this reference as, "Oh yeah, oh, the king is in the field." But what does that actually mean? And what does that mean to me practically in my L? Like, I can't believe it's already Zion L. That's how it works, right? We're already a week in. Oh my goodness. That's why I knew I had to do it tonight, or like it's not gonna happen. Okay, so let's begin. What does Elul stand for? So Elul is the name of the month as the last month of the year in reference to Rosh Hashanah before the new year, Rosh Hashanah. And we're told that Elul stands for a few different psukim in the Torah, and it's referenced to in different areas, in different places. But for many circles, and this is a quasi joke, but in many circles, Elul stands for Oily Vavili. Oy vey, in other words. Oy vey, Elul, it's Elul. Because the perspective is that Rosh Hashanah is coming, and the perspective on Rosh Hashanah is that it's Judgment Day, which, by the way, wait for the Rosh Hashanah class. It's gonna be a whole shift on Rosh Hashanah as well. But it's like terror, fear. Oy vey, Rosh Hashanah is coming. Oy vavayli. But the Hasidic perspective on Elul is that Elul stands for a pasuk in Shir Hashirim, Ani ledodi v'dodi li. I am for my beloved, and my beloved is for me. Now, if we first think about where is this pasuk, I said it's in Shir Hashirim. What is Shir Hashirim? Shir Hashirim is a romantic poem that Shlomo HaMelech wrote to depict the relationship, the loving, romantic relationship between Hashem and the Jewish people. And I think that we could honestly stop this year there and just say, if you think about that for a second, that a reference to Elul is in Shir Hashirim, which is all about this loving relationship between us and Hashem. Great. That's what it's all about. That is what it's all about. So now we're going to pivot, and I'm going to share with you we're going to come back to Ani Ladodi Vidodi Li at the end of the year, God willing. But first, we're going to discuss the mimer of the Alter Rebbe, in which he brings this entire example, this mashal of the king is in the field. The Alter Rebbe, the founder of Chabad, brings this mashal, this analogy for the time of Elul. And before we get to the analogy, we have to understand the background of why we even need an analogy for the month of Elul. And the answer is because the Alter Rebbe takes something from Kabbalah, from the Arizal, Rabbi Yitzchak Luria, who was 16th century in Tzfat and revealed Kabbalah. And the Arizal says like this. He says that Elul is a time of Hisgalus Yud Gimel Midos Harachamim. That Elul is a time of the revelation of Hisgalus, Giloi, the revelation of the Yud Gimel Midos Harachamim. It's a time when the Yud Gimel Midos Harachamim, which we will define in a moment, are revealed. In other words, they're shining, they're expressed in the time of Elul. Okay, so we have to understand, what are these Yud Gimel Midos Harachamim? Yud Gimel is 13. Midos harachamim, attributes of mercy. They are God's attributes of mercy, which he revealed to Moshe after the Chet HaEgel. After the sin of the golden calf, the Jewish people, after Matan Torah, the Jews just got the Torah, and then they sinned big time, big time, big time. They royally messed up so soon after getting the Torah. And yet Moshe does not give up on them. And he entreats, is that the word? He pleads on behalf of the Jewish people to Hashem to forgive the Jewish people. And so Hashem, the timeline is so incredible because on Rosh Chodesh Elul is when Moshe goes up to receive the second luchos, and Rosh Chodesh Elul is when on the top of Har Sinai Hashem reveals to Moshe the 13 attributes of mercy. Do you know what's 40 days later? 40 days later is Yom Kippur, the day that Hashem actually forgives the Jewish people for the Chet HaEgel and says, V'salachti kedvarecha. And that's Yom Kippur, which we celebrate every year on the same day that Hashem forgave the Jewish people for the greatest Chet. Hashem, that's the opportune time for Hashem to forgive us every year as well. And so those 40 days in between Rosh Chodesh Elul and Yom Kippur is when Moshe was receiving these 13 attributes of mercy from Hashem. And the 13 attributes of mercy are pretty much what they sound like. They are Hashem's attributes of mercy. Hashem is benevolent and compassionate and gracious and slow to anger and abundant in loving kindness and truth and preserves loving kindness for thousands. He's forgiving iniquity, rebellion, and sin, and he pardons. Hashem, kel racham v'chanan erech apayim v'rach chesed v'emes noter chesed la'alafim nosei avon v'fesha v'chata v'nake. And you might recall these words from Yom Kippur davening. We repeat them over and over again to invoke this rachamim, this forgiveness from Hashem. And so, yes, they depict Hashem's love, patience, mercifulness, and forgiveness. And what does the Arizal say? That during Elul, these 13 attributes of mercy are revealed, are in an expressive mode. They are being revealed, meaning they're there out in the open for us to access during this time. So that already, we can pause here and we can say, what is Elul? It's a time that's obviously an opportune time to do teshuvah, to return to Hashem, to come close to Hashem, to ask Hashem to forgive us for all of our mistakes from this past year, because we know this is a time where the 13 attributes of mercy are revealed, and Hashem is willingly there to forgive us during this month. So absolutely, it's an opportune time for teshuvah. As we said, Ani ledodi v'dodi li. It's also a time of our loving relationship with Hashem. And so put that together. It's a beautiful month to work on our relationship with Hashem, to come close to Hashem, to ask Hashem to forgive us, because this is that time. This is that magical time. Okay, so really we could end this year here, except the Alter Rebbe has a question. Based on what we just discussed, based on this principle of the Arizal, that the 13 attributes of mercy are shining, are revealed during the month of Elul, the Alter Rebbe says, whoa, hold on. I have a question on this. You see, before we get to the question, we have to understand what this even means, that it's revealed. So Giloi, we said hisgalos, they are revealed. Giloi, the word revealed, means that I can feel it, I can experience it, I can perceive it. So, where do we feel, perceive, and experience Giloi Elokus, godly revelation, revelation of godliness? Well, different places, times will call for different levels of revelation of Hashem. So, for example, I don't know about you, but when I'm in Eretz Yisrael, in the Holy Land, I sense Hashem's presence in a much greater way. And that's Eretz Yisrael as a whole. Then you go to Jerusalem and even more. Then you go to the Kotel even more. And then, in the time of the Beis HaMikdash even more. And then you go to the Kodesh Kadoshim even more, where you would feel, you would experience, you sense. I remember when I was 12 years old and I went on an incredible bat mitzvah trip. Thank you, mommy, who's listening now, for my bat mitzvah to Eretz Yisrael, to Israel. I came home and I told my grandmother, I just fell in love with Israel. She said, "What? What is it about Israel that you love?" I said, "The air. I love the air. There's something in the air. There's Giloi Elokus. There's godly revelation in the air. You can sense it, you can feel it, you can experience it." And that's why they say, by the way, that a weekday in Eretz Yisrael is like a Shabbos in Chutz La'aretz, outside of Eretz Yisrael. And a Shabbos in the Holy Land is like Yantif in Chutz La'aretz. I think what it goes next is Yantif in Israel is like Yom Kippur in the Holy Land, and Yom Kippur in the Holy in outside of the Holy Land, and Yom Kippur in the Holy Land. There's nothing like it, and that brings us to the fact that there's space and there's time. So if we're going to talk about time, when do we feel, sense Hashem's presence in a greater way? Well, every Shabbos, right? The way that we keep Shabbos enables us, right? Turning off our phones, having kiddush, not doing any malachas, having a su'udah with our family, that enables us. It actually makes us a keli, a vessel, to sense and feel and experience Hashem's revealed revelation. So we feel, we sense Hashem in a greater way on Shabbos and an even greater way on Yantif. Why? Because there's a reason for that. It's because in these times and places, there is a greater revelation of godliness. So we don't create that revelation, we just have to become vessels for it. So on Shabbos, every seventh day of the week, since the time of creation, Hashem reveals himself in a greater way. And when we keep Shabbos, we make ourselves vessels to perceive it, to reveal it. Otherwise, we're going to be too distracted on our phones. We won't sense it. We won't recognize it, but it's there. It's there. So Giloi means revealed, which means that we can sense it, we can perceive it. So what day of the year has the greatest, highest level of Giloi Elokus, godly revelation? Obviously, the holiest day of the year being Yom Kippur. Why is it the holiest day of the year? It's the holiest day of the year because it has a very high level of godly revelation on that day. Do you know what that level is? The level of godly revelation on the day of Yom Kippur is none other than the 13 attributes of mercy. The 13 attributes of mercy are revealed on Yom Kippur, which is why it is a day in which we are forgiven. We're forgiven for everything and anything on Yom Kippur because that's the day where Hashem is showering us with his 13 attributes of mercy. And as we said, Rosh Chodesh Elul to Yom Kippur, the 40 days, and then on Yom Kippur, Hashem totally forgave the Jewish people for the Chet HaEgel, and so too every year. That's an opportune time. So the Alter Rebbe knows this about Yom Kippur. And he knows that Yom Kippur is the time when the 13 attributes of mercy are revealed. And then he sees the Arizal. And he sees that the Arizal says, Elul? Elul is a time when the 13 attributes of mercy are revealed and shining? So the Alter Rebbe asks a very simple and, question, it makes sense based on everything we've just said. A question which is, then why is Elul not a yontif? Why or how could it possibly be that Elul is not a yontif? Because as we just explained, the whole concept of yontif is that it is Yantif because it's a time when there's godly revelation revealed. So Hashem is revealing himself in a greater way, and therefore it's Shabbos. Hashem's revealing himself in an even greater way, and therefore it's Yantif. Hashem is revealing himself in the most greatest way with the 13 attributes of mercy. It's Yom Kippur. So now the question isn't only why is it not a Yantif? How could it be that the entire month of Elul, other than Shabbos, is Chol? It's weekday. It's mundane days. But even more than that, it shouldn't only be Shabbos or Yantiv. We said that the 13 attributes of mercy are the level of Yom Kippur. And yet, Elul is not one long Yom Kippur, but rather mundane weekday lives. I don't know about you, but I've been pretty busy with regular life. Now that you know the question, now we can bring in the very famous mashal, the very famous analogy, because the analogy is only coming to answer this question. The Alter Rebbe has this question: how could Elul be weekday when there's such high levels of godly revelation? And he answers with an analogy. And that analogy is the king in the field. So in my own words, the you know what? Should I give you a treat? Would you like to see it? Would you like to see the words of the mashal? I think it's beautiful. I would like to show it to you if it's easy enough to allow me to do that. How come I don't see? Hmm. Ah, here. I know why. Got it. All right. So, I am screen sharing, and here the Yud Gimel Midas Harachamim. Um, if you want to see that quickly, slideshow, so you could see the full screen. Here are the Yud Gimel Midas Harachamim. And then we have the timeline. Rashi explains his timeline. And then we have from the Mimer that El is a time. It's known meaning he's quoting the Arizal. It's known that El is a time. Zman, his galus, Yud Gimel Midas Harachamim. So then how could it possibly be that it's Kol and it's not Yantif? And we made the question even stronger. And here we have the words of the text of the mashal itself. So now this will be understood. Achine yuvan al pi mashal. This will be understood via an analogy of lemelech, lemelech, to a king, of a king. Shekodam bo'u le'ir. That before this king enters the city, meaning the royal city, yotzin anshe ha'ir lekreso. Its inhabitants, the inhabitants of the city, go out to greet him. Umekablin panav basadeh, and they go out to greet him and to receive him, his face, to receive his face in the field. There's the sadeh right there, the field. Ve'az, and at that time, risha'in, kol misha rotzeh, latseis, lahakbil panav. Anyone who desires is given permission, Rasha'in, permission to go out and to receive, to approach him and greet him. Lahakbil panav is to greet him, to receive his face, to greet him. So at this time that he's in the field, anyone who so desires is allowed to greet the king. And what does the king, how does the king react to seeing them? Hu mekabel eskulam. First of all, he receives them all of them, no matter who you are. He receives them all. Besever panim yafos, pleasantly, with a pleasant face, a pleasant countenance. pleasantly, with a pleasant countenance. Umare panim sochakos. And he shows a smiling countenance, a smiling face. Again, likulam. And it's emphasizing over and over again, likulam. Call me sharotza. Anybody who wants. Kulam. Them all. He receives them all. And he shows this pleasant face, this smiling face to them all. Uvilcha so ha'ira, uvelechto, sorry, ha'ira, and as he then proceeds to the city, meaning the royal city where his palace resides, harei heim holchim acharav, they follow after him, va'achar kach, and after that, bevo'o leheichal malchuso, when he comes and he reaches his royal palace, in nichnasim, in nichnasim, not everyone can enter, meaning you can only enter ki'im birshus with permission. You can only enter with permission. Ve'av gam zosam muvcharim sheba'am v'yechidei segula, and only then to the select few are granted. Only the select few are the elite are granted permission to go. I'm going to stop here. All right. So how was that? A taste of the text, the actual text. So now when you hear of the king goes in the field, you'll say, "Wow, I actually learned it in the mimer. I saw it in the mimer itself. I saw the words of the Alter Rebbe." All right. So what is the idea here? The idea here is that at the end, the Alter Rebbe contrasts this experience of the field, of meeting the king in the field, with when he goes back to the palace. So usually, let's contrast these two. In the palace, when the king is in the palace, which is the usual state of where the king would be, there is awe, there is trepidation. You feel it. As you come closer to the royal city, you can feel magic in the air. You can feel, I'm in the royal city. You could see things are happening, and you can see that you start to get sight of the palace, the majesty of the palace. And as you get closer, you see the big pillars, and you come through the gate. And as you come more inside, deeper, deeper into the palace, the courtyard, and inside, the wonder, the awe, the majesty just grows and grows and grows. And along with the majesty grows the trepidation, because you feel I'm in the presence of the king. That is what we mean by Giloy, revealed. And that is the experience of Yantif, of Yom Tov, of Chagim, of Rosh Hashanah, of Yom Kippur. It's an experience where you feel you're in the palace, which is why, by the way, you have such a thing as a Yom Kippur Jew, as a Rosh Hashanah Jew. You have such a thing as somebody who doesn't necessarily feel their Judaism all year, but comes Rosh Hashanah, of course I gotta be in synagogues. Comes Yom Kippur, of course. Of course I gotta be in synagogue. What's the question? Because you can feel it. The revelation on those days are so strong that even a Jew who's perhaps not feeling connected to his Judaism all year can feel then, of course, of course, of course. When we take advantage of Elul, which we'll come to soon, then by the time we get to Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, it's like in the mashal when you come back to the palace. And now you come back with the king to the palace, and you're experiencing that awe, that revelation while he's in the palace. But because you met him in the field, now you can go back. Otherwise, only, it takes some connections, some elitism to be able to make it into the palace, which in practical terms means working harder on our teshuvah and our davening to be able to reach the palace on an ordinary day. But in the time of Elul, the king is in the field, which means that he is there. He's present. He's here ready to for us to greet him, ready to connect, ready to give us a smiling face, and ready to shower us with the 13 attributes of mercy, except for the fact that it's not in the royal palace. And therefore, it's not dazzling. There's no awe. It's mundane. And that is the paradox of Elul that the Alter Rebbe is trying to bring to us with this analogy of the king in the field. Because he said, remember, it's a time of incredible revelation, incredible godly revelation. And yet, we don't feel it. Oh, that's because the king is here. He's right here with us, but it's in the field. We're in our weekday clothes. I didn't dress my best. I didn't prepare for my journey and go, greet the king in the palace with all the dazzling everything. No, the king is here, but it's not in the palace. It's in the field. So that answers our question. Why is Elul not a yontif? Even though there's this revelation, the revelation is in the way of the king is here, yeah, but it's in the field. It's coming to us where we are found in El, in the chol, in the weekday, in the mundane, in the busyness of life. And therefore, there's a catch. The catch is that the king is here and he's ready for us to experience him and connect with him and have this loving relationship with him. But because it's in the field, I don't feel it. And because I don't feel it, I might miss it altogether. And that is where we're going to come back and bring in why is El connected with the pasuk of Ani lidodi vidodi li. Because the truth is, and I'm going to share my screen again to show you these two psukim. The truth is that there are two psukim that are very similar to each other, both from Shir Hashirim. One of these psukim are, as we know, Ani ledodi vidodi li, and you could see the Aleph, Lamed, Vav, Lamed, Elul for Elul, Haroa b'Shoshanim, grazing amongst the roses. I am to my beloved, and my beloved is to me, grazing amongst the roses. But there's another pasuk from a different part of Shir Hashirim, which is the flip side. Dodi li ve'ani lo. My my beloved is to me, and I am to him. Haroa b'Shoshanim. So one of them is I am to my beloved, and then next is my beloved is to me. And one of them is the opposite. My beloved is to me, and then I am to him. And the direction is referenced in Chassidus. I'm going to stop share there, but keep those psukim in your mind. By these two concepts, a concept called Isarusa de Le'ela and Isarusa de Sata. And these are two different directions in terms of initiating connection with Hashem. And these are concepts in general in Chassidus, and then we'll apply it to here. Isarusa de Le'ela means an initiation. It literally means an arousal, an initiation from above, such as when Hashem gives us like we wake up one morning and we just feel inspired. We feel just more able to daven with kavana. We just feel more connected. And that was a gift from Hashem. There was nothing I did to initiate that. I started my morning like anything else, and Hashem, boop, gave me a gift that I would feel more. So Hashem initiated that connection. And I hopefully respond in kind by taking advantage of that connection and davening with extra kavana and making use of that inspiration. The opposite is isarusa de lisata, an arousal or an initiation from below. That means when my life's going as usual, nothing, and I decide, hey, I want to increase my connection with Hashem. I've had enough of this, daily grind. I want to do something different. You know what? I'm going to open up my siddur and I'm going to daven with kavana, even if it's hard, or I'm going to daven, right? Whatever it is, wherever we're holding, there's something there that I say, I want to initiate that relationship. So let me ask you something. Going back to that pasuk, I don't want to screen share again. We only have a few minutes left, but having those psukim in mind, right? One of them is Ani Lidodi. I am to my beloved, which is me to Hashem. And the other one is Hashem Dodi li, right? And the rest of that pasuk, Hashem is to me. And the next pasuk is Dodi li. It starts with Hashem to me. So the question here is, Melech Basadeh, the king comes to the field. Which pasuk or which concept do you think that this sounds like? If the king is coming to the field, and if you hear people talking about it, this is, I think, the biggest misconception about the king is in the field that I'm hoping to, um, bunk that misconception here. That the misconception about the king is in the field is that, of course, it's Hashem coming to me. Hashem comes to me. There's even a song on, in the Jewish world that the king is in the field. He comes to me. But wait a minute. If the whole point of the king is in the field is that he's coming to me where I am in the field, then why is Elul represented by the pasuk that starts with Ani lidodi, me to Hashem? How could this possibly be Elul? Or how is Elul, the king is in the field, if it's really about me coming to Hashem, which in those Aramaic Hasidic terms is arusa de lisata, ani ledodi. It's an arousal from below. It's me initiating that connection and that relationship. And the answer is because of that catch that we mentioned a minute ago. The catch of the mashal that I think is so underappreciated. People think, oh, the king is in the field. Great, hello, it's wonderful. It is wonderful, it is wonderful, but you forgot something. The king is in the field, which means that he's here, he's available, he's accessible, but you could miss him altogether if you don't look up from the field and go and greet him. And if you paid attention to the wording of the mimer, and this is part of why I brought you the text, it says likraso. The inhabitants have to go out to greet him and receive him in the field. And anybody who desires, let's say, has to go out lahakbil panav and approach him to greet him. So he's here, he's making himself available in the month of Elul, right? In our mundane lives in the field as we are. That also means like as we are without having yet done teshuvah. So with all our dirty clothes from any mistakes and things that we have done over this year, however we are, Hashem is, he's coming, meaning he's coming to make himself available for us. But it's up to us to look up and take advantage and go and greet him and go and connect with him and go and, right? And once we do that, of course, Hashem is there with that smiling countenance, that pleasant face. He's so excited to greet us. But we do have a step to do here. And it's so relatable because how possible is it to get to Rosh Hashanah and realize, oh my goodness, the whole Elul went by. Okay, it's very nice the king was in the field, but if I didn't actually, stop and do something differently and take advantage of Elul and use it, then I won't feel it. And this is why, I'm just looking at the time, and this is why that while the king is in the field, it is mundane and therefore we don't feel it and therefore you could miss it altogether. And that is why it's so important to take advantage of the month of Elul. And that is why Elul is represented by Ani Ledodi first. It's about my initiation. It's a Rusa de Lasata, my avoda. So what is Elul about? The king in the field is supposed to bring out the idea that Elul is actually about me taking advantage of the king being in the field. And by the way, you know what the advantage is? The advantage is tremendous. The advantage is, in the most practical terms, is that it's easier. So if we really want to understand what it means that the king is in the field, it means that I don't have to go traveling to the palace and get all fancy clothing and book an appointment and make connections in order to receive that smiling countenance of Hashem shining his forgiveness upon me and having that intimate relationship. When it's Elul, all I have to do is look up. In fact, the mashal says kol mi sherotzeh. Anybody who wants, even if you just want to, you just look up. You take a moment to focus, to recognize Hashem. I want to get close to you. And what the practical difference of Elul is that it's easier because Hashem is making himself more accessible and more available to connect with us and for us to connect with him during the month of Elul. Ani Lidodi, I need to do my part, but Vidodi Li, he's right there, ready to receive us with a smiling, pleasant countenance, ready to forgive us, ready to connect with us, and ready to bring us back to the palace for Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, of course, when we will then crown him as king. But what I find, and I think you will find this too, is that it really is easier. It's easier in Elul to take on a something that even not as a full-on hachlata, but to try and do something different in Elul, you will find that it's easier because the king is in the field. So Hatzlacha Rabbah, doing that teshuva, take advantage of Hashem being present, Hashem being here, Hashem being available as we are, where we're holding. All we need to do is look up, take that moment to focus, reach out, try take one step that usually during the year is so hard, and we will find it will be successful. Ksiva v'chasima tova, and hopefully we'll see you for the next year.